And it's time for the penultimate chapter of A Tale of Two Cities, chapter 14, The Knitting Done, from the third book, The Track of a Storm. In that same juncture of time when the 52 awaited their fate, Madame Defarge held darkly ominous council with the Vengeance and Jacques III of the revolutionary jury. Not in the wine-shop did Madame Defarge confer with these ministers, but in the shed of the wood sawyer, erst the mender of roads. The sawyer himself did not participate in the conference, but abided at a little distance, like an outer satellite, who was not to speak until required, or to offer an opinion until invited. "But our Defarge," said Jacques III, "is undoubtedly a good Republican, eh?" "There is no better," the voluble Vengeance protested in her shrill notes. "In France!" "Peace, little Vengeance," said Madame Defarge, laying her hand with a slight frown on her lieutenant's lips. "Hear me speak. My husband, fellow citizen, is a good Republican, and a bold man. He has deserved well of the Republic and possesses its confidence. But my husband has his weaknesses, and he is so weak as to relent toward this doctor." "It is a great pity," croaked Jacques III, dubiously shaking his head with his cruel fingers at his hungry mouth. "It is not quite like a good citizen. It is a thing to regret." "You see," said Madame, "I care nothing for this doctor, I. He may wear his head or lose it. For any interest I have in him, it is all one to me. But the Evremond people are to be exterminated, and the wife and child must follow the husband and father." "She has a fine head for it," croaked Jacques III. "I have seen blue eyes and golden hair there, and they looked charming when Samson held them up." Ogre that he was, he spoke like an epicure. Madame Defarge cast down her eyes and reflected a little. "The child also," observed Jacques III, with a meditative enjoyment of his words, "has golden hair and blue eyes, and we seldom have a child there. It is a pretty sight. In a word," said Madame Defarge, coming out of her short abstraction, "I cannot trust my husband in this matter. Not only do I feel since last night that I dare not confide to him the details of my projects, but also I feel that if I delay there is danger of his giving warning, and then they might escape." "That must never be," croaked Jacques III. "No one must escape. We have not had enough as it is. We ought to have 60 a day. In a word," Madame Defarge went on, "my husband has not my reason for pursuing this family to annihilation, and I have not his reason for regarding this doctor with any sensibility. I must act for myself, therefore. Come hither, little citizen." The wood sawyer, who held her in the respect, and himself in the submission of mortal fear, advanced with his hand to his red cap. "Touching those signals, little citizen," said Madame Defarge sternly, "that she made to the prisoners, you are ready to bear witness to them this very day?" "Aye, aye, why not?" cried the sawyer. "Every day, at all weathers, from 2 to 4, always signalling, sometimes with the little one, sometimes without. I know what I know. I have seen with my eyes." He made all manner of gestures when he spoke, as if, in incidental imitation of some few of the great diversity of signals that he had never seen. "Clearly plots," said Jacques III. "Transparently." "There is no doubt of the jury?" inquired Madame Defarge, letting her eyes turn to him with a gloomy smile. "Rely upon the patriotic jury, dear citizens. I answer for my fellow jurymen. Now let me see," said Madame Defarge, pondering again, "yet once more. Can I spare this doctor to my husband? I have no feeling either way. Can I spare him?" "He would count as one head," observed Jacques III, in a low voice. "We already have not heads enough. It would be a pity, I think." "He was signaling with her when I saw her," argued Madame Defarge. "I cannot speak of one without the other, and I must not be silent and trust the case wholly to him, this little citizen here, for I am not a bad witness." The Vengeance and Jacques III vied with each other in their fervent protestations that she was the most admirable and marvelous of witnesses. The little citizen, not to be outdone, declared her to be a celestial witness. "He must take his chance," said Madame Defarge. "No, I cannot spare him. You are engaged at 3 o'clock. You are going to see the batch today executed. You. The question was addressed to the wood sawyer, who hurriedly replied in the affirmative, seizing the occasion to add that he was the most ardent of Republicans, and that he would be, in effect, the most desolate of Republicans if anything prevented him from enjoying the pleasure of smoking his afternoon pipe in the contemplation of the droll national barber. He was so very demonstrative herein that he might have been suspected, perhaps was, by the dark eyes that looked contemptuously at him out of Madame Defarge's head, of having his small individual fears for his own personal safety every hour of the day. "Aye," said Madame, "I'm equally engaged at the same place. After it is over, say 8 tonight, come you to me in Saint Antoine, and we will give information against those people at my section." The wood sawyer said he would be proud and flattered to attend the citizeness. The citizeness looking at him, he became embarrassed, evaded her glance as a small dog would have done, retreated among his wood, and hid his confusion over the handle of the saw. Madame Defarge beckoned the juryman and the Vengeance a little nearer to the door, and there expounded her further views to them thus: "She will now be at home, awaiting the moment of his death. She will be mourning and grieving. She will be in a state of mind to impeach the justice of the Republic. She will be full of sympathy with its enemies. I will go to her." "What an admirable woman! What an adorable woman!" exclaimed Jock 3 rapturously. "Ah, my cherished!" cried the Vengeance, and embraced her. "Take you my knitting," said Madame Defarge, placing it in her lieutenant's hands, "and have it ready for me in my usual seat. Keep me my usual chair. Go you there, straight, for there will probably be a greater concourse than usual today." "I willingly obey the orders of my chief," said the Vengeance, with alacrity, and kissing her cheek. "You will not be late. I shall be there before the commencement, and before the tumbrils arrive. Be sure you are there, my soul," said the Vengeance, calling after her, for she had already turned into the street. "Before the tumbrils arrive!" Madame Defarge slightly waved her hand to imply that she heard, and might be relied upon to arrive in good time, and so went through the mud and round the corner of the prison wall. The Vengeance and the juryman, looking after her as she walked away, were highly appreciative of her fine figure and her superb moral endowments. There were many women at that time upon whom the time laid a dreadful disfiguring hand, but there was not one among them more to be dreaded than this ruthless woman, now taking her way along the streets, of a strong and fearless character, of shrewd sense and readiness, of great determination, of that kind of beauty which not only seems to impart to its possessor firmness and animosity, but to strike into others an instinctive recognition of those qualities. The troubled time would have heaved her up under any circumstances, but imbued from her childhood with a brooding sense of wrong, and an inveterate hatred of a class opportunity that had developed her into a tigress, she was absolutely without pity. If she had ever the virtue in her, it had gone out of her. It had quite gone out of her. It was nothing to her that an innocent man was to die for the sins of his forefathers. She saw not him, but them. It was nothing to her that his wife was to be made a widow, and his daughter an orphan. That was an insignificant punishment, because they were her natural enemies and her prey, and as such had no right to live. To appeal to her was made hopeless by her having no sense of pity, even for herself. If she had been laid low in the streets, in any of the many encounters in which she had been engaged,